Thanks everybody for joining us on this snowy, in some parts of the state, Tuesday morning. It's not snowing here right now, but it was flurrying earlier. Reports committee meeting. I am thrilled to have everybody here and to to talk for a little while about data, which is one of our favorite things to talk about. I will note that Elizabeth Davis, who is often our guru in this area, is visiting a library. She is at the Tunkhannock Public Library this morning in Wyoming County because they are having a happy resource sharing day. They are sharing materials with the entire Northeast District. So they are going from just their collection, having no resource sharing besides IOL, to sharing with all the libraries in that district. So yay for Tunkhannock and the residents of Wyoming County. And we're glad Elizabeth can be there. She may pop in if she can join from the library, but she was taking donuts. So resource share with people. Sparkle, bring your donuts. I will turn it over to Angie and we'll see what we want to do today.
Yay. So hooray for all of you people that like reports or hate reports. Either way, I'm glad that you're here. It is the first event of the 2023 PAILS user group Spark meeting, whatever our official title is. I'm sure Katie and Kat will fix me later. Yeah, so reports are polarizing. Something that I have noticed is people either love the report or they hate the report. And either way, they need to use the report to get the information so that they can do whatever, whether it's to your staff members, your board members, whoever else you might be accountable for. Reports are one of those things that you kind of have to do it, or you have to find a friend that will do it for you and give you the information, which is one of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on today, but I also wanted to check in and see if anybody had any specific questions. If people have tried Simple Reporter, and if you love it or hate it. If you have tried Simple Reporter and you're like, that's just not simple enough, or it's too simple. And one of the other things that came up at the Evergreen conference last week was how to use Excel once you've used Simple Reporter and you've got gobs of data, because it just gives you a whole lot of information. How to use Excel to take the data from the Simple Reporter and make it usable or readable or in a better format so that you guys can either distribute it to whoever needs it or just for your own personal perusal. So anybody have any specific questions right away? Not so much. We'll wait the awkward amount of time looking for chat. Nothing. Also, I apologize in advance. I have 2 cats and 1 dog, and everybody is stressed out because the mailman showed up about 5 minutes ago and left something on the porch, and I have not gone to see what is on the report on the porch. So apologies in advance if a cat walks across the screen or the dog decides to use his beautiful voice to sing a song to his people. Great. I don't see anything in the chat, but somebody holler, or microphones or whatever you guys are comfortable with. Does everybody know how to get to the Simple Reporter? Yes, no, maybe. Has anybody used the Simple Reporter? Yes, no, maybe. I'm gonna try to share my screen. And it says not yet. Awesome. Let's see if this works. Can you guys see what I can see, which should just look like my basic report screen?
At the moment, I'm just seeing, okay, yes, now I'm seeing
yes. It. Okay, there it goes. So this is what my normal report screen would look like, or OG Reporter, Avril Lavigne Reporter, whatever we're gonna call it, because personally I like the Avril Lavigne Reporter, but I understand everybody's got their preferences. But if we go under administration, maybe, down at the bottom here, you guys should see Simple Reporter. And fingers crossed it will change. And you should also notice that it should change in your address bar up top. One thing that I have noticed from my library, getting into the Simple Reporter screen seems like it takes a very long time. So don't panic if it doesn't load right away. It's just one of those things. I cleared everything out of my cache and everything that was in here so that you guys would see it from scratch. Let's see. So if we choose new, and this is kind of nice because it gives you, if you're not super familiar with reports or you're not really into reports or not, this isn't one of your main job functions or something that you do every day, it kind of asks you, what do you want to learn about? Or what information are you looking for? So circulation is great for things like check-ins, check-outs, basic counts of things. Collections is good for basic counts of what's in a particular shelving location or what's coded to a particular set. We have had some success with reading, but not a slew of successful reading reports. There goes my puppy, I apologize. Patrons, I definitely prefer the original reporter for patron billing as opposed to Simple Reporter. And then billings and payments I have not touched yet because I don't trust it, which sounds terrible when I say it out loud and somebody can delete it from the recording, right? I think we've all experienced the joy of billing and payments with the Spark reports, doubles, triples, things that don't exist, things that exist multiple times. So yeah, I thought we would start with something super simple. I am going to minimize all my chat windows. So if you're saying something, I apologize because I can't see you if I want to actually look at my screen.
I will keep an eye on the chat. So feel free to hop in and I will, I'll interrupt Angie.
You're the best, Katie. Thank you. So the other thing that I have found really helpful, whether you're using Simple Reporter or regular Reporter, is giving things really specific names, titles, putting in notes wherever you can, even if it's something that you're going to look at once and delete it later. Maybe it worked really well and you want to be able to find it again. So if you're looking at something for a particular person on your staff or a particular board member or yeah, just really taking the time to put a good name in there. Your display fields, your output order, your filters. If you're not used to looking at them, it's kind of nice because it gives you a good idea of what the actual thing is that you're going to see. Not so good if you have no idea what these are. If you don't know what they are, there's a really great resource in the Evergreen documents for Reporter that kind of gives you the breakdown of what the things are and who they belong to and what kind of functionality you get. So I think we're going to look for some overdues. Excuse me. And we're going to look for where that library is. My library resource shares specifically with the other 11 libraries in our cooperative. So I could potentially have items circulating in my building from 12 libraries in my cooperative. And then I also use Access PA for interlibrary loans. So those could be from other Spark libraries that are not part of my cooperative or other libraries that are outside of my cooperative, but I have either created a short record or dummy record for an interlibrary loan. The second tab you'll see is output order. That'll give you the option for real data, minimum value, maximum value per account. The nice part about this is it tells you exactly what it is. You can also tell it whether you want uppercase, lowercase for things that are text. related, or if you have multiple branches or multiple items that might start the same, you can kind of revalue it by first value, last value. So if you have pails 1, pails 2, pails 3, you can then kind of break it down that way. Does that kind of sort of make sense? Sure, why not? And then in your filters, you can choose from your libraries if you would like the checkout library, the item owning library, which might be the same, might not be the same. And again, this will give you those same filter values and transform values if you want full name, if you want first or last value. And then your output options. This should look very similar to the OG reporter in that you can have your Excel output, your CSV, your HTML. I don't know anyone who's using the chart options for anything other than Giggles, especially with things of this kind of option. Like it might be fun if you were looking at a report of patron types and you wanted to see visualization of how many were adults versus young adults versus children. That might be fun for a chart, but things that are going to be looking at circulation counts or check-in, check-out libraries, your charts are going to be really not very much fun to read. HTML is great if you're just going to look at it on the screen. You're not anticipating changing the data in any way. But if you are going to look at it and you want to be able to work with it, I would recommend using this Excel output or the CSV output. For me personally, Excel is a little easier to work with if I'm going to be modifying the data, which is one of the things I mentioned about talking about. If you're going to take the data, maybe you're doing a shelf list of all of the things that are cataloged in a particular shelving location, and you just want a list of all of those barcodes, CSV might be a great option for that because you can take that CSV and then dump it back into Spark and have it process again for you. Just like the OG reporter, you have the option to set it up as a recurring report or a run now. If you choose a recurring report, you can tell it how many days, hours, weeks, months, or years. So if you find a simple reporter that works for you for a monthly report that you need to run or a yearly report that you need to run, this might be a good option for you. I would recommend, again, setting it as a recurring report until you're sure that you have the data that you want. You can always delete it later, but I think it's safe to say this is a trial by error and find what you're looking for first and then set it up to run once you know that you have the data that you want in the places that you want to work with it. You can also schedule it for later. So let's say you want to run it after close of business. You can set it up to run after your building is closed for the day or before the building opens the next morning. You can also send it to your email or someone else's email if someone's specifically asking you for the data. With the email, I would caution you just from a privacy perspective, if you're running things that might involve patron data, vendor data, on orders, anything that might be considered personally identifying or even proprietary information, use caution with that email output. None of us would intentionally do anything to harm, but just something to be aware of. So we're going to save and schedule, and we will see what it looks like. So then you should get your list of all of the things that you have in your reports tab. If you wanted to generate another one, you would do those same steps by clicking new and then following through. It ran pretty quickly. Sometimes it will run super quick. Sometimes it will take you a little longer. Much like with the OG reporter, you're going to highlight whichever report you're working on and then choose your output. see if you guys can see my Excel sheet. Maybe.
Did you open it?
Yeah.
I think you might need to share your whole desktop. To me, it's just showing the browser still.
Gotcha. Technology, man. So cool. Let's see if it will.
Sometimes I have to stop sharing and start sharing again.
Maybe. I will say that was the other nice thing from the Evergreen conference last week, when people who are infinitely smarter than me and much more technology able than me also could not get the HDMI adapter to work. So that was encouraging. I mean, not that I want anyone's technology to fail, but it was nice to know we're not alone. Yeah, that doesn't. Why won't you? Sure. So pretend like that worked. It'll be fine. In theory, you guys can totally see my Excel sheet, and you can see all of the data that is encompassed there. And it is beautiful and messy, and there's data all over the place. And you would either look at it and go, yep, that's exactly what I want, or, oh, no, this is totally not at all what I want. You can then delete the report if you're like, nope, I'm never going to look at this again. You can hang on to it so that you know what didn't work, did work, didn't work. Or you can look at your settings and then apply it to Recur, or share it with someone else in your group. So Simple Reporter, yay, totally awesome, right guys? He's like, yeah, we hate Simple Reporter. We're never using it. This is the worst thing ever, except it's not. It's pretty fun. It is great if you are just looking for a data dump, if you don't expect the system to do a lot of the processing for you. Simple Reporter is amazing. If you're just looking for a count of things, it's great. If you are looking for something more specific, I would say the OG Reporter is your friend. Let's see if it'll. How about now? Maybe?
It looks like it's coming.
Hi.
It's coming. Yes, okay. I'm seeing your browser with the OG Reporter.
Know why that Excel sheet won't load. Oh, I do actually know why that Excel sheet won't load. So my building, we got a new circulation desk, and where I sit at my circulation desk is right at the edge of the desk and right in front of the water fountain. So I have enabled a whole bunch of privacy things. So that just in case I forget to walk away and lock my screen, that I'm not leaving potentially interesting information up on the screen that someone would maybe look at it. So that is absolutely my fault, but you guys probably would never even have noticed if I didn't mention it. So nothing to see here. So yeah, if you're looking for something more specific, more detailed, for instance, my library services 3 different municipalities as our home library. I prefer the OG Reporter to pull that data and do a little bit more of the back-end data sorting and filtering for me. So one of those things that I wanted to kind of demo for you guys is something that will give you a count of circulations by the patron type and the item type based on where that patron lives if you use municipalities as a StatCat. If you don't, there's a couple other ways that you can do it, or you can kind of back end the data. As always, when you're working with the ERG General Reporter, please remember to clone the report before you run the report, just in case the person that you're borrowing it from decides they don't love it and they get rid of it, or they want to get rid of it and then they can't because you've attached output to it. But because I'm already the owner of this report, I'm going to create a new report from the template, and we're going to run through this one. Wow. Don't mind me, I can totally spell today. The other thing that my staff definitely noticed is you can run a report without a report description, but not necessarily the best choice. This particular report I stole from Rebecca in York County. It works out really well for us, specifically for trying to figure out which municipalities are using the library, if they're using the library, if we're not serving them as well as we used to. So we can look at data year over year and even month over month, and just kind of get a better idea. You'll also notice that I have definitely simplified my foldering system. While we were onboarding and assisting with migration for some of the other libraries in our cooperative, I realized that I didn't really need that many folders, and maybe you don't either. In my templates, I have a private folder just called circulation. That's what most of my work revolves around. And then also a shared folder I've called Try Me, and it's shared Spark system. In my reports and my outputs, basically the four main categories that we're reporting on, or that I'm reporting on and being asked to report out on. And one of those is shared within my library. I have deleted my LCLC, my cooperative folder, for the time being, because there was a bunch of things that I converted from Zool that were kind of working, but not totally working. So my spring going into summer project is to kind of recreate those and make sure they actually work. Anyway, so what we are looking at, or what I am looking at, is a list of things that have been checked out from my building. And I would like to know the age group and the municipality, and if they are a non-resident. And I'm going to pull this into Excel. So I'm going to delete my HTML and my bar chart. I don't need it to email it to myself, because why would I need it to email it to myself? I'm going to look at it and work it. And then I'm probably going to delete the report and save the Excel sheet. I'll send it to the appropriate output folder. The other hot tip of the week is to try and match your report folder to your output folder, so that you know where you're looking for the report that you ran, as well as the corresponding output. I have talked to a couple people that use different names for different folders. It's entirely up to you. It's entirely personal preference. But from a kind of trying to keep track of organizational standpoint, I am trying to simplify things instead of make them more messy. So we looked in my circulation folder. I'm going to highlight the report that just ran. If you're not sure if it's running or not running, you can look up top in your pending items. General rule of thumb, if it's been more than an hour or so and something's not running, you can either kill the report or submit a ticket and have somebody else kill it for you, unless it's something that you know is pulling a slew of data, in which case maybe it will take an hour or two to run. But most things at this point run pretty quickly, especially if you're only looking at your building maybe the couple buildings that you are specifically reporting on. So from there, you can then choose view report, delete report, or move it to a different folder. So if I ran this report and I really wanted to look at the patron data instead of the circulation data, I might consider moving it to my patron folder. In this case, we're going to do view output, and should give you a pop-up window. The other thing that we have noticed is different browsers need to enable the pop-ups. Google Chrome, typically not so many issues, but Firefox in particular, we've noticed with the last update in Firefox, you might have to re-enable your pop-ups. Let's see if this one will pull open for us. Maybe. It's totally gonna work this time, guys. Maybe, fingers crossed. Can you see what I can see?
Yep.
Yay, all right. So nobody saw me disable my protection. It's totally fine, don't tell anybody, right? Right. So the first thing that you'll notice is that it will open in protected view. In order to do anything with this data, you'll need to either choose enable editing or open as administrator, depending on how your Microsoft licenses are set up, in particular, your administrator privileges with the data. If you are set up as a view only for reporting, you might need to talk to your library admin or submit a separate ticket so that you can view and edit, not just view. But that is a whole discussion for another day. So we'll choose to enable. Now it's the Amazon truck. I apologize. He's normally much quieter. And you guys can see that there is a slew of data in here. And while I would not necessarily consider any of this personally identifiable, I would also be cautious in who I shared this data with. So if you remember, we looked at whether they were a non-resident, the age category, and the type of material. So my StatCat column is column A, and this is grouping by age. Our system is set up 0 to 13, 14 to 17, and then 18 to 100. We do have a couple patrons that are over 100 years old, and I can't tell if their data still shows up in this or not. But again, that's a whole different conversation. And then I have it broken down by where that resident is coded that they live in their municipal StatCat. We have a couple in here that are outside of my cooperative or non-residents. And specifically, I'm interested in looking at how these Macungie residents use the library compared to my Emmaus residents. So we can do a couple things with this data. We can delete any necessary fields because I looked at non-residents, all of these no categories. I can highlight and because I know that these are not non-resident, meaning that they live in a library district, I'm going to right click and I'm going to delete those fields. There's something that's not particularly interesting to me. I don't need it to look at the rest of my data. I can look at all of these that are things that I am not super concerned with because they're not the two municipalities that I'm interested in comparing for this particular exercise. So I can highlight all of these. I'm just going to look back through them. Yep, these are all organized by the place that they live. I can look at all of these and say these are also residential areas that I'm not particularly interested in looking at. So I'm going to, again, highlight the rows, right click and choose delete. And then these two are interesting to me because East Penn Township could be a couple different things. So I'm going to leave those rows and I'm going to delete the rest of those residential areas. I left these yeses, which means that that person has paid us a nominal fee as a non-resident, probably Weisenberg Township, though there's a couple other areas nearby. But really specifically, I'm looking at, whoops, sorry guys, my Emmaus residents, which are people that live in the borough of Emmaus, versus my Macungie residents that live in the borough of Macungie. The other interesting thing, which is another one of those Excel hot tips, if I want to keep this top column in place so that I can scroll without having to try and remember which column I'm looking at, I can go highlight that first column under View, choose Freeze Panes, and then Freeze Top Row. So then as I scroll through this data, you can see that top column stays on the top, even though the columns underneath it are moving. So I can see that my Emmaus adults borrowed 2,211 books in April. We looked at April, as opposed to my Macungie adults only borrowed 122. I can look at my courtesy cards. Those are probably my volunteers, my board members, my staff members. They borrowed 91, as opposed to my Macungie courtesy borrowed 11. Even if we look at my juvenile, these would be 0 to 17 in this particular instance, borrowed 335 books compared to 77 books. And we just launched a 0 to 5 card. Our start age had been 5 to receive your library card. Now we are 0 to 5. So that is what this column is for, my brand new card holders. So these cards have been active about 6 weeks max. We just launched that program. You can see that my Emmaus residents, 0 to 5 years old, borrowed 39 books, while my Macungie residents borrowed only 2 books. And if you're like me, you're going, that is a huge difference in numbers. And then I think about how many of those card holders my library has. And right now, card holders for Emmaus residents outnumber card holders for Macungie residents about 2.5 to 1 across age groups. It's not an exact science, but it's about 2.5 to 1. So if I take that into account, and I would multiply this by 2.5, that's still a huge difference in books. If I look at it in DVDs, 339 to 10. If I look at it in high demand items, 229 again to 10, that's still a huge difference. So that tells me that we have some work to do, that either we don't have the materials that the Macungie residents want, or what's more likely happening is they're visiting another branch that is closer. Our cooperative is 12 libraries. My particular library touches the borders of 6 other libraries. So even though they might be our home resident, we might not be the closest geographically for them or the easiest to get to geographically for them. So my next step after looking at this data would be, okay, yep, this is interesting. I could choose to save it, save as if I wanted to change the name, or I could be like, yep, that doesn't make any sense. I chose the wrong formula or I chose the wrong report. In this case, I'm just going to save because I'm going to pull another report and I'm going to look at the other area libraries nearby, and I'm going to look specifically. This seems to me the biggest opportunity is just plain old books. So I've got grown-ups taking out 4,432 books, and about half came from borough residents. So I would be interested in finding out what that number looks like for other area libraries. The other nice thing about this report is because I asked it to give me the StatCat across the top when I was choosing those modifiers, I can drill down into each of these categories specifically, or I can choose to just look at one or just look at none. Does that all kind of make sense? Kind of, sort of? Maybe. Cool. So since I saved that, I can safely close my window if it wants to. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can clean up some of my desktop for you guys. Any questions about all of that I went through way quickly? Some of the quick tips for Excel, differences between Simple Reporter, OG Avril Lavigne Reporter. It's about 11:45, so I am smashing the time game. I'm so proud of myself, other than that whole preferred view Excel. Once I figured out what was going on, that worked out just fine. I don't see anything in the chat. Is there anything else that you guys had questions about, had interest in? Anything at all? Doesn't have to be reports.
One of the things that I was curious about as a discussion topic is the resources that we supplied this year for the annual report. Did you like those? Were there other things we could do? Did you use, the Elizabeth's templates and stuff? Thank you, Heather. But we are open to, so what we found is we didn't get a lot of people at the office hours. So what we're talking about doing next year is just offering like one-on-one times for anybody who wants to, like, we'll do the general walkthrough. And then anybody who wants a little bit more TLC than that, we'll just schedule a one-on-one appointment. Does that sound good? Did you like the office hours? We're definitely keeping the walkthroughs. I think that's nice, but were there other things that might be helpful? Okay. Yeah, I think that people feel like their questions are silly or small questions, and it is very individualized. Like, everybody uses the software a little bit different, so I think the one-on-ones are nice. Any data questions like coming into summer reading and things like that, like things you might want to try tracking or things that you may want to run to see? I always love to run like Circs by Dewey blocks, which is another one that it's easier to do in Excel than it is to do from Evergreen. Ooh, yes. Thank you, Angie. Definitely sign up. And will someone drop in the supports list? Kat, would you grab that one?
Yep.
And of course, we have giveaways. So, I might have that. Do I have that? No, I don't still have that one.
Another shameless plug, because I can. We discovered that there's not an active circulation working group in the Evergreen at large community, but we do have a great circulation group as Pale Spark.
And
So
Jessica's here.
I was going to say, I saw Jessica jump in, and she was kind enough to allow me to extend the invitation to her circulation group, which is meeting next week, to the, at this point, all of the ladies that have said, yes, I love circulation. I want this to work. And I'm sure it had nothing to do with my gentle threat of we need to be better at circulation.
I would say impassioned plea.
Yes, that's it. Impassioned plea. So one of the things that I was reminded of while I was kind of prepping for this meeting was my library shares with 12 libraries in a cooperative, and then I have interlibrary loan access to all of these other libraries. And that kind of works the same way for reports or circulation or cataloging or acquisitions or whatever else. You're not in it alone. You might be the only person in your building that does the thing that you're trying to make work, but you're definitely not the only one in the universe trying to make the thing work. So it could be something as simple as you're setting up a new printer and you're like me and you completely forgot that receipt printers have minimum and maximum margins. So of course it won't print because you don't have a margin. Or it could be something really complicated, like you just got this hand-bound first edition, beautiful reference material that is super exclusive and super high value, and you don't have permissions as an original cataloger, and how are you going to add it to your collection? So from very, very simple things to very, very complicated things, you have a wealth of resources. You have wikis, you have mailing lists, you have the amazing support portal through Katie and Kat and Elizabeth, coming out of a system that was hosted literally in New Zealand and the UK. We migrated to Evergreen in 2018 into 2019. I still have tickets open with my previous provider. I don't think I've waited more than 3 days for anything from the Pales team, even without full staffing. So if you have questions or concerns, I did drop my email in the chat. If you guys even just want to like vent about something, that's cool too. Libraries are libraries. We do the things with the people, and sometimes the things are the problem, and sometimes the people are the problem. So yeah, so much fun.
And if we can't answer it, we know the people who wrote the software, so we can always find an answer for you.
Thank you all for coming and kicking off our users group. It's gonna be a fun couple of weeks.
Thanks for being here, and don't forget that tomorrow at 11, same time, is the ILL committee. So pre-register for that on the user group meeting page, which I linked.
And we're going to show an upcoming integration that we're testing. So if you want a super secret ILL preview, come see us tomorrow.
Yes, secret info. All right, I'll stop the recording. Thank you.